Are you serious? Are you serious, folks? Welcome to another powerful broadcast. I'm telling you, wow. Well, I've had a fever, and it's what's the worst thing you can do with a fever? Lay in bed and watch the shift show. that might put an end to your life. It's the worst 6 hours I've ever had. I tell you what it would do. It either kill you or cure you. I tell you what it made me do. It made me get up and say, I got to get out of bed and just go talk to Bob Cutler, my good friend from Trade Genius, to tell me what's going on with the impeachment process. And then we're finding out we've got this insane market that's been right in around 28,000. I never saw that coming. And Bob says it's not over. We're going to find out more about that. And then what about China? It looks like the China Ponzi scheme economy that they've been living on is starting to collapse. So maybe China's Ponzi scheme and the impeachment shift show is all going down together. I don't know, but so much production in industries like steel is based on demand for more production. But should that demand falter, the whole system could come crashing down. Friends who have a greater interest than I do in reading the tea leaves in Beijing tell me that the emphasis in relations with Hong Kong from now on will be on one country rather than two systems. I think this phrase could be wrong, but guys, this article I'm reading to you was a 2 year ago prediction, and he might be right. It will be one country. If you watch what's going on in Hong Kong right now, if they take democracy from the people of Hong Kong, it would be a one country, but it looks like it's a collapsing Ponzi scheme. Let's find out really what's going on here with everything with our good friend from Trade Genius Academy, Bob Cutler. Bob, how you doing today?
Apparently better than you, Paul. So let's talk China first, because that's the 8,000-pound gorilla in the room.
Okay.
China has been slowing now for the last couple of years without any prompting from the trade tensions. It's just that they have created a debt bubble that is unsurpassable by any other country ever in the world. It's over 300% of their GDP. And as you know, when you're a command economy, you put the money where the politicians say to put the money, and they're probably the worst pickers of good deals out there. They basically try to line their own pockets. So you have these apartment buildings that are empty and developments that are not open, and basically they squandered all their money, Paul. And then all of a sudden, Trump says, hey, you know what, we got to change the relationship. And so this whole thing with the trade deal, and I think I've spoken to you about this before, there's never going to be a trade deal, all right?
Yeah.
Trump's going to rope-a-dope this thing, and every time the Chinese balk, he's going to continue to raise tariffs. And one or two things are going to happen. One, he's going to get all this tariff income, and that the Chinese are going to be running production facilities at zero profit. Or number two, all the supply chains leave China, and basically we start hollowing out the Chinese infrastructure. Right now, both are happening. And now there's a third thing you can add to the mix, is that they have these incredible, issues of plague, bubonic, and also of the kind for the pigs that are wiping out their pig population. And then they have what's called a rust that's forming on their wheat and corn crops. So, the Pharaoh of Egypt of the East is starting to reap some of the benefits of their corruption. And when that happens, Paul, it's Katie bar the door. And so, you'd probably look it up. They now have 3 cases of bubonic plague now in China. It's highly infectious.
Well, it's
treatable, but it's highly infectious. I mean, we're going back to the Middle Ages over there.
You know, I've heard about it. I heard about these cases of the Bubonic Plague, and the thing is, they do not have the infrastructure that we have as far as their health care. And I mean, you know, we struggle with our health care, but I mean, my Lord, you're talking 1.5 billion people where 80% of them do not have access to quality health care. So this thing could spread like mad if they're not careful. You're right about the pigs. The pigs are sick. I mean, they're slaughtering them by the thousands, hundreds of thousands, actually millions. Same thing is going on in North Korea, and so it's like the plagues of Egypt. And now, what's this rust on the corn? I mean, Brock's showing us thousands of pigs. They're having to shoot them and kill them. What do you mean rust on the corn? Is this a disease on the crops?
Yeah, so there's it's a disease that came out of Myanmar that in the U.S. we've already hybridized it away, and so it's a very minor nuisance for Western agriculture, but the Chinese and other Asian countries have not. So it basically decimates about a third of the wheat and the corn crop, and you add that on top of all the issues that the farmers are having this year with the weather getting colder earlier and wetter, that the Chinese are going to run out of surplus. So the game that they're playing with Trump in terms of trying to hold back buying the food is just, is simply short-sighted thinking on their part, because they're going to need to quickly import as much food from us as they can, which is going to raise another political issue. Smithfield Foods have totally retooled their facilities. That's 100% Chinese-owned company, by the way. Many people probably don't know that, out of Virginia. So they don't have retail anymore. So they buy whole hogs, they slaughter them, they cut them into thirds, they freeze them, and they send them packing over to directly to China. The CEO of Smithfield Foods came out and said, this will, at some point in the near future, have a profound effect on pork prices in the United States. Can you imagine the screaming that's going to happen when bacon goes from $4.99 a pound to $12.99 a pound because the Chinese are taking every hog that they can get their hands on and shipping it east? It's just going to be a nightmare, and China will ultimately lose that, because no politician in their right mind is going to try to starve out their own population who can vote them out. And so that's the big issue, what's happening with China. And all the predictions that the experts have regarding how Trump was going to lose this trade war that's going to cripple the United States economy has proven to be extremely false. Our economy in the world is the only one that has any kind of significant GDP growth. Our debt to GDP is actually, all the hand-wringing you hear out there, is actually quite modest, in terms of comparing it against our economic competitors. And the third thing is that we have a very diversified economy, Paul. We export and import, it's 14% of our GDP is trade. So 86% of what happens to our economy happens within our border. Now, Canada and Mexico are our two leading trading partners. So if you add them into it, you're talking about, England, Germany, China, and Japan are the countries that we're having trade issues with. We're a 22 or 23 trillion dollar economy, and we're talking about maybe $200 billion worth of trade. So
Wow.
If China wanted to cut us off tomorrow, okay, it may bother us for a month.
Yeah, it's no big
until
deal.
we replace them. If we cut China off, we're 30%. They're 40% of their trade is their part of their GDP. We're like a third of that. We would literally put them into a depression. And oh, by the way, the stuff they buy from us is stuff they need, Paul. The stuff we buy from China is mostly stuff we want and can be replaced at a higher cost, or substituted in Vietnam or India or other nations. So China is, this whole notion of China being the boogeyman for the United States. It is not.
It's over.
In the next 10 years, as the climate continues to get colder, China will fall off the map just like Japan did. Now, the downside to all that, Paul, is that China's implosion we will not be immune from it, okay? Because it'll daisy chain across the world. You know, it's already affecting Germany. It's going to affect England. It's going to affect Japan and Korea. And all of that, we won't be able to escape it in the short term. But we'll come out of it better and faster than any other nation that has relied on exports this whole time. So that's why you're seeing the stock market so strong. The dollar is so strong because everybody and their brother are trying to bring capital into this country to protect themselves. And then our Federal Reserve is shoveling in, I think, you know, within the next couple of weeks, I think they'll shovel in another $1 trillion into the banking system that's also finding its way into the stock market. And when you have that kind of money flowing in there, that's hot money, Paul, it's difficult for the stock market to crash. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to get these blips here and there. I put a chart up to show you. I never expected the S&P to go this high.
Yeah,
but I don't rely on my own judgment.
Let's take a look at that chart right here, folks. Again, this is Bob Cutler from TradeGenius.com. He's going to be giving us also an impeachment update here in a moment. But the stock market's been hovering around 28,000. And look at this right here. Look at the acceleration of the stock market. And Bob has this special analytic system that you can learn if you join his academy. He can teach you, if you've never traded one time in your life, he can teach you how to trade, when to trade by following the algorithms. So tell us about what we're seeing here with this this chart that's just accelerating here in the green.
Yeah, so because I can't see your charts, I'm assuming it's the one that's all green, right?
Yes.
So that's the daily chart of the S&P 500. And if you notice, when that thing took off is when the Fed started its repo, which they don't call QE, but it's really QE. And as long as that ribbon is red and that line below it is black, is that you shouldn't short the market, okay? You know, what we've been telling people is, look, during a rise like this, it's prudent for you to take money off the table, move it into things that are undervalued like gold and silver and the miners. But, you know, I'm just trying to impress upon people there's going to be no crash coming. Now, the other two charts I showed you is that we got our first inkling of maybe some weakness coming, Paul. And so we know that this week there is a certain event that happens to a futures contract that affects the ability of the stock market to go up and down. And when that thing rolls from one month to the next, it can cause weakness in the market. And we saw that, and we shared that with our listeners and our subscribers yesterday and said, you might want to position yourself for a sell-off today. And we indeed got that. And then as soon as that contract rolled into the next month, we had no time to talk about all the mechanics of it. Suffice it to say is then you buy that dip. And we did. And so now what we have to watch for, Paul, is for if the market is going to then push through the high that you saw, I think, on Monday. If it does, then it's going to go for another probably 3 or 4 or 5% higher. If it does not, then we're probably due for a correction, but still not a crash. One thing that people need to bear in mind here is that the only place now that's available for the federal government to gain a lot of tax revenue is from capital gains. And so occasionally they like to throw these sell-offs in there, Paul, to be able to create taxable events for them to collect and rake in some cash. And then they turn around and try to drive the market higher again. So that's what we're looking at. I'm expecting something between now and the end of the year, a significant enough pullback to allow the government to rake in some profits, but we still have a blow off still coming in the market. And what we'll see there is we'll see gold and silver, platinum and palladium, energy and food will all participate in that. And when that happens, then it's going to end it, Paul.
Folks, it's Bob Cutler with us, TradeGeniusAcademy.com. You can pick up the phone and call him at 1-800-949-1408. That's 1-800-949-1408. Of course, the price of gold is pretty strong at $1,475 an ounce. He's running a Black Friday sale, 50% off, folks. Seriously, what is he doing?
Maybe I have the flu, Paul.
Yeah, I think you've got the flu. There's never been a better time in history to invest in the stock market and the cryptocurrencies. With over 30% of the overall gain since President Trump took office, the market continues to climb to the top. Trade Genius, over the last 30 days, has netted his traders nearly 50% on their money, which is just insanely unheard of. And from the spot on the crypto and the stock trades, you can see that. And there's this cryptocurrency Ripio, I don't know if that's what it's called, has about a 10% already, 19% gain also. So again, folks, check out Trade Genius Academy's Black Friday sale. Use the promo code Black Friday. Save 50%. That's insane, but that's what he's doing. And let me just say something. Talk about insane. I said I laid in bed with a fever. Still running a fever, so I don't know. I might say something crazy here. But I watched the Adam Schiff show for 6 hours with a fever. And the only thing it did was, it was either going to kill me or cure me. And what it did, it got me just get out of bed because I can't take it no more, okay? Can you tell us what's going on in this impeachment situation? What is your update on it?
Yeah, so, I'm sure a lot of your listeners have been pretty keen on it. But look, they tried to, basically remove President Trump from office from the moment he became president. So this is the third iteration of a quote-unquote impeachable offense, and now they're on to the Ukraine thing. But like everything else that the Democrats have touched, this is really projection, Paul. What they're accusing Trump of is what Biden did.
Yeah.
And then the additional insight that I've gleaned from this is that Trump accidentally kicked over a hornet's nest in Ukraine because a lot of money's been siphoning through Ukraine that's basically becoming kind of money laundering for the elites. It's not only Biden, it's Pelosi's kid, it's the other guy that was trying to run for president out of Massachusetts, Kerry's kid.
Yeah.
And then you find out that the money that they've been sending in there, they can't get accounting for it. Where did the money from Iran that get paid Iran, where did that come from? So all of a sudden, this has become like a point of contention. And they're like, hey, look, we got to get this guy out of office so that we can end this investigation. They may roll up on a lot of these guys on the left and also a lot of these deep state guys. And, it could be the CIA's slush fund for all we know, too. So, so there's a lot going on there that's probably above and beyond what we have awareness of, but it's starting to come to the forefront. Look, the Schiff show that we're seeing here is just showing him to be absolutely an idiot. And everything's hearsay, everything's kangaroo court. Every time they put one of these on, Trump's approval rating keep going up every day.
Yeah.
97% of the Republicans support Trump, so no Republican in the Senate in their right mind would even take up an impeachment. The talking points don't matter. If Trump faces Biden in the election, Trump will just hound him to death on this. And by that time, I'm expecting, the FISA warrant, the FISA report will be out. The report on this stuff with Ukraine will be out. Of the Bidens, and just fact today, in Ukraine they arrested the CEO of Burisma, and they named Hunter Biden in the complaint.
What?
So
I didn't know that.
seeing stuff coming out from there too.
What? I did not know that. So they arrested the CEO of Burisma, and Hunter Biden's on the board of directors, or he was. Maybe he resigned now. I don't know. But what?
Yeah. So all this is coming home to roost, and thank goodness. Hey, and as an aside, Prince Andrew stepped back from his official royal duties because of the Epstein thing. They arrested those 2 guards that were in the jail. So, they'll be singing like songbirds, to find out who else was involved in all of that, and some of that stuff's going to flow back into the Democrats too, because they're knee deep into that stuff. And so, good things happen for those of us who wait or are impatient here, because this stuff's coming out, and I think Trump's going to just keep it leaking until the election, and just keep these guys on defense.
Okay, so there's obviously it's not affecting our economy. During the impeachment hearing, for the first time ever, the economy goes over 28,000. It's not affecting our military. Baghdadi's dead now. It's not affecting jobs. They're at an all-time high. It's not affecting unemployment. And it don't matter if you're white, black, brown. It doesn't matter. Everybody's got a job. Everybody's making more money than ever. At the end of the day, what in the world? How does the House, do you think, just a question, but I don't know how many seats are up in the coming election in the House, but could the House flip back red in this upcoming 2020 election?
It's hard to say. Well, all the seats in the House come up, Paul, but in the Senate, more Democrats are running than Republicans this time. So I think the Senate is fairly secure for Republicans, but on the House side they'll probably lose some seats in this, but I think you have to flip 17 of them to flip the House back towards Republicans. So I'm not counting on that. I think we'll probably have what it looks like right now: Republican Senate, Republican President with the next election, and the House will be Democrat. But if Trump gets reelected, it's going to be Trump unchained. He'll be digging in every corner of the Congress and the archives and the deep state, and just root him forever. So the only thing that's going to take this thing down, Paul, is that something coming out of the blue, or China really rolls off hard, or we get really big spikes in energy and in food. And I don't think that's a short-term thing, but it's definitely a longer-term thing for us to worry about. We absolutely are going into the grand solar minimum. We're actually getting alignments now of a lot of cycles that will bring, I think, a lot of harm to the growing districts that where we've been used to, getting our corn and our wheat from. And until other growing regions take up the slack that have been marginal in the past, there's going to be a 2 or 3 year window where I think food prices will shock people. And so I think that's a real concern. And in 2011, we got a foretaste of that, Paul, when the Arab Spring happened, when the central banks around the world were pumping hard, and all of a sudden food prices spiked, and countries that were, and our dollar was rolling over, and countries that were reliant on the U.S. dollar as their base of their currency, they couldn't import food. And so that's happening now around the world for countries that aren't on the dollar. You look at Argentina, you look at Chile, you look at Turkey, you look at Iran. You see what's happening in Iran this week.
Yeah.
I have 2 neighbors that are from Iran. I was talking to him yesterday, and I asked him how's it going, and he said, well, my family is out of Shiraz. He said it's very bad there. He said that he goes, the people are barely living as it is, and they raised the price of fuel 300%.
What?
He said it just brought the people out into the streets. He said people are starving to death.
Yeah.
He goes, and he just said, at least Saudi Arabia, they splash the money around. In Iran, they keep it all into the mullahs,
right.
He said, he goes, the Saudis know how to manage their population with a tyrant. He said the Iranians, they did not. And he said that regime, he goes, I think that regime is probably going to fall.
I think so.
He said the hatred is just overwhelming for the ruling class there. And and they can't put it back in the bottle. And Trump's been on their throat now with these sanctions too.
So 40 years of the Iranian Revolution, going from having a secular, moderate government under the Shah of Iran to today has brought nothing but misery to an Iranian people who do not want to be under Sharia law. They don't want to be under this radical regime. Trump had the guts tear up the horrible deal, the Iranian nuke deal, ask the question, who sent the plane with $1.4 trillion in it, and then put his boot on the throat of the Iranian oil supply and squeeze them to where that regime is going to be toppled. And I think you're exactly right. They won't survive. Trump wins the election. Forget it. Iran will have a new regime changed in that following 4 years. What about China? Because what about Hong Kong? All right, the pigs are dying. They're sick. They got bubonic plague. They got rust on the crops. They're getting, the tariff is choking them to death. And now they've got a situation called democracy demanding freedom. What's going to happen here with Hong Kong?
Well, I think predictable things are going to happen. The people in Hong Kong have now decided to stand their ground. The dictatorship only acts as a dictatorship does. They don't understand how to negotiate. They only understand force. And then our House and our Senate have just voted to support the Hong Kongers. And the thing that people don't realize is that we treat Hong Kong differently than we treat China. And if China takes over Hong Kong, we'll treat Hong Kong like China. And a lot of really, 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 really rich Chinese communists, that's where their wealth sits, so it can escape out of the country. And if that gets locked down, there's going to be some really unhappy people within the CCP of China, and Xi may not survive it. It's not monolithic over there. Just because he's in charge, it doesn't mean that he's in charge. He has to manage factions, and you can't just gain total control of a country with 1.5 trillion people. The Southern Chinese don't actually love the Northern Chinese. Their people have different views, and there are different factions, and there's already been bubbling. And part of what Trump's doing too, he's trying to find out where he can divide them too. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. But if he overplays his hand in Hong Kong, then it's going to be a big problem for the Chinese Communist Party and their wealth. And then we can start locking them down with sanctions. And they have a lot of money and a lot of wealth overseas, a lot of it in Canada, a lot of it in the United States, a lot of it in Australia and New Zealand. And all those countries are part of the Five Eyes. Those are the former satellites of Mother England. And we all cooperate together. And all of them are feeling the effect of the Chinese hegemony. And so if America stays strong, he can roll the Canadians and the Australians and the New Zealanders, into a sanction group that really can pressure the Chinese. And I think that's what the Chinese have to be worried about.
Bob Cutler, folks, TradeGeniusAcademy.com. You can always pick up the phone and call him at 1-800-949-1408. That's 1-800-949-1408. He's running this Black Friday special, 50% off. I think he's got a fever. This is awesome. And folks, seriously, if you've never traded in your life, you can be taught how to trade, and he'll provide you with the tools in the chat room and the advice needed to help you enter into the market and when to buy, when to sell, give you some really good tips. Really strong through an algorithm system he's developed. He's the only guy I've ever heard of that studies the weather patterns and how they affect the crops globally and how that affects the markets and energy markets, food market, all the different goods and services. So he's brilliant. He really is a brilliant mind, and a lot of people really enjoy being a part of his organization. So check it out. Go to his website, www.TradeGeniusAcademy.com. That's www.TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Or pick up the phone and call him at 1-800-949-1408. Get in on the Black Friday special. Bob, Adam Schiff's from your state, California. Can he ever be voted out?
No, those guys are locked in these liberal bastions. I think Adam Schiff. I think he might be up in the Bay Area. I'm not even really sure. You know, we have our own Republican that went Democrat. You know, in our district, and she's the one that had to resign because she was doing inappropriate things with her staffers.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Okay.
So we got our own nut cases down here in the South Paul, and but Adam Schiff, I believe he's up in Northern California. If not, he's in Northern LA. I'm down towards San Diego. I'm a little south of Irvine, north of Camp Pendleton, the Marine base. So I'm just in my little slice of happiness, Paul.
Yeah, that's a nice place to be. Okay, that's a real nice place to be. So, Bob, thank you so much for coming on and being with us today. I think we're learning a lot, and we're not only learning a lot about the geopolitical area and all how it affects the economy, but people are learning that they can participate. This is the greatest country in the world, and the economy is roaring, and the opportunities are there for anyone. So go check out Bob Cutler, folks, at TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Bob, appreciate everything you do, and thank you for being with us today.
No, thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Trade Genius Academy, guys. TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Use that promo code Black Friday. Get that 50% off. Are you serious? Are you seriously serious? I'll see you guys next time. I'll be live tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. God bless.